Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Trend Report. I'm glad you're here for what I know is going to be another great conversation. And I expect this one to be fun. So I'd like to welcome to the show today, Megan Mazzocco. Megan is the A+D Yogini, and I think this is going to be a great conversation. Hey, Megan, how are you?
Hi, Sid. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. So Megan and I met on Clubhouse. And that led to a LinkedIn relationship, which then led to an offline conversation to learn a little bit about Megan's story. And I'm like, you have to come on the podcast because your story is awesome. So why don't you take a minute, Megan, and introduce yourself and tell our listeners who you are and what you do today?
Sure. So my name is Megan Mazzocco. I am the A+D Yogini reporting from the intersection of place and well-being. And just being a B2B journalist and in the architecture and design industry, interviewing experts across markets and then synthesizing kind of, complex ideas and information, products and systems into approachable and timely insights has made me really appreciate the power of design. And then as a lifelong yogini and kind of health nut, I really came to embrace the designer's abilities to apply material innovations and best practices to achieve collective health outcomes. And so that's what inspired me to kind of view everything through the lens of health and well-being.
That's awesome, actually. So let me ask you a couple of questions. All right.
Sure.
So you started as a journalist.
Yes.
And so which magazine were you working for?
So I was senior editor for Architectural Products, Architectural SSL, and Net Zero Buildings magazine.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm an independent contractor as well. So I am an independent journalist and have reported for several other titles in the design space. So Metropolis, Pro Builder, hotel industry
that's
as
awesome.
well.
That's awesome. So I'm sure you're a much better journalist than I am. So I write a column too. But it was a learning process to learn how to write and to be a journalist. And I quite enjoy it now, but I would not call myself a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
And so that's how yoga by design was kind of born, is because my path was through design kind of to yoga. During my career, I had an undiagnosed illness for about a year, and I was just exhausted. I couldn't sleep enough. I really couldn't think straight. So it was difficult to do my job.
Sure.
And I relied on a lot of my yoga practices. I developed a sleep ritual and also kind of a mindfulness and meditative practice because I was at some points too weak to do yoga.
So let me ask you, Megan, how did you get into yoga?
Okay, I was in my early 20s when I got into yoga. I think I went to a local health club and I said, I want to have the body of a ballerina. What sport should I do? And so
first off, I love the way you do that. I want to have a body of a ballerina. What sport should I do? And they obviously recommended yoga.
And a guy who calls himself Dr. Sweat recommended yoga, Pilates, and then his kickboxing class.
Okay.
And so I set out on all three of those things. And eventually I noticed that the residual effects of yoga were helping me in other areas of my life off the mat. So that's why yoga stuck.
So can you give an example of how the residual effects, how they were impacting you positively in other aspects of your life?
Because yoga is not necessarily about stretching or flexibility. It's about being in these uncomfortable positions or weird postures, right? And breathing and not judging yourself, and remembering to only use medium effort, and then to not get frustrated. So basically, that pause, or that ability to sit in discomfort and just breathe through it, is something that it applies to any kind of discomfort or uncomfortable situation that you may find yourself in. And I traveled a lot of the time, and business travel can sometimes be disorienting and uncomfortable, unpredictable. And you have to kind of, manage
Yep.
and go with the flow, and not get caught up in the fact that things are not going the way that you want them or
Yeah.
expect them to.
I think business travel is one of the most, potentially one of the most stressful things that you can actually do. Right. Because flights get canceled, they get delayed, people get upset, the airports get crowded. The line to the Starbucks is, 100 people deep. And there's a lot of frustration points at an airport, and it does create a tremendous amount of stress. And I'll tell you, I haven't really traveled in, gosh, 3 or 4 years, like really traveled the way I was and when I was doing my corporate job. I don't miss it. I don't miss it. I traveled at spring break. My family and I went on a vacation at spring break. We all have our vaccines. And so we went on a vacation at spring break, and I was like, I looked at my wife and said, yeah, I don't want to do this. The plane didn't have an empty seat in it. I mean, people were cordial and nice because of what's going on in the world, but nonetheless, it was just a packed plane and long lines. I'm like, I don't miss this at all. I don't miss it at all. So Megan, for somebody that is not done yoga or is interested in yoga, like me, it's kind of been on my list of things I want to try, but I've actually never done it. And during probably the height of the lockdown, I kind of did a little bit of research about it. Tried to find a local place near my home to go because I've never done it. I don't know any principles about it or anything. And nobody was doing beginner classes. And so I still haven't found any in-person beginner classes yet to go to. But, my question for you is, what tips would you give to someone that would encourage them to just start out on a yoga journey?
I guess I would say that you did the right thing in trying to find a beginner class. Networking with your local yoga studio is a great idea. If you're just starting out and you'd like some individual instruction, I would suggest maybe working with a private teacher, especially if there isn't a beginner class. And some studios have what's called like a community class where it's offered for free, or they have all levels. And I know that I was taught to just teach to the most beginner student, and the more advanced students will do what they need to do to get their practice.
Okay.
So
So basically what you're saying is research yoga studios in your area, find a beginner class. If you don't, you could probably find something online to at least get you started. And we just got a Peloton in my house, and I know they have yoga. So as soon as I have the opportunity to go up there and play around with it and figure it out, I got my account set up. So that's all I've done so far, but I'm excited to check that out and see.
And also just remember, yoga is kind of more of a mindset. So like if you cross your arms right now, go ahead and cross your arms. Now uncross them and do that the wrong way so that you're doing your wrong arm in the.
Yep. So I'm going to give this as a visual for those of you that are listening. Those of you that are watching on YouTube, you actually saw it. But if you take and just naturally, just hit my microphone. Sorry about that. You just naturally fold your arms. Look at where your hands are. And, for me, my left hand is on top of my right arm, and my right hand is underneath my left armpit. Now, what Megan is saying is do it the opposite, because this feels comfortable. Now do it the opposite. and that feels really uncomfortable, right? It feels really uncomfortable. And that's really what yoga is about.
Exactly. So it's just a mindset. And so you just did you beginning yoga.
Okay. Well, look, there you have it right there. Okay. So I'm good. So Megan, your love for journalism, your love for design brought you to this intersection of health and well-being, and then led you to create a CEU, and kind of where you got your A+D Yogini tagline. So tell us about that, a little bit about that journey and a little bit about that CEU, because I think this is fascinating.
Okay, sure. So the practices that I was mentioning earlier, just like paying attention to my yoga, meditation, and sleep rituals in order to minimize my burnout while I was working and traveling and raising two boys. And I kind of noticed kind of a little, I guess, irony in the architecture and design world, which was we're designing these healthy buildings, right, for the best collective health outcomes, which I'm totally fascinated by, how buildings can give design cues and how they can be instruments of health. That's why I co-moderate the room, Architects as Healers, Buildings as Medicine on Clubhouse. And the one thing that I thought was a little ironic, though, is that there was still kind of this high pressure, crush it culture in architecture and design. And I was noticing, there wasn't always rest and recovery for architects and designers. And then when there was a CEU requirement or a series of requirements for relicensing, a lot of the time, some architects that I knew would be cramming, basically to get their CEU requirements so they could be relicensed. And it was not a restorative process, and it was stressful.
Okay, so Megan just took care of her coworkers for a few minutes. I have a couple of those too. So guys, you know how that kind of happens when you're doing live recordings and you have four-legged coworkers. So let's keep going, Megan. You were talking about the architects and cramming for CEUs.
And CEUs are great, especially on-demand ones are amazing when you are working on a project and there is a particular area of knowledge that you need to, specify correctly. So you want to boost your expertise, and that's really available to you. But a lot of the time it's not billable hours. And so it doesn't become a priority until there's a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I could make the CEU process a restorative one for architects and designers. And because the practices that I started incorporating in my life really actually helped me as a creative writer and as a journalist, I thought, why don't I bring that to the architecture and design world? So the people who are designing well buildings can actually embody wellness themselves and be truly sustainable, because a lot of these practices, they tend to boost creativity. And the simplest of all of the practices is basically getting enough sleep. And so a lot of people say, oh, the world would be such a better place if everybody did yoga, or the world would be such a better place if everybody meditated. I think the world would be such a better place if everybody just got enough sleep. And so I know that
it's so powerful and so true, right? Because, and we're going to talk about your sleep system in a minute, but we all know the adverse effects of not getting enough sleep. We know how we feel when we wake up and we've only had 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and how it impacts our day, both our productivity and our wellness. As you're pointing out, that the world would be a better place if we could all get at least 8 hours of sleep every night. We'd wake up a lot happier individuals. That's for sure.
And it actually boosts your creativity.
Mm.
So that's one thing that I teach in the A+D toolkit for daily creative renewal is how to sleep, how to get restorative sleep, and then also a simple gratitude practice.
Mm.
Because people who have a gratitude practice not only are shown to get better quality sleep, but they also tend to find solutions in unlikely places and are generally more successful.
All right. So let's hang out there for a second. Name the CEU again, please.
It is called the A+D Toolkit for Daily Creative Renewal.
Okay. So I love the name of it. Is it both a IDEC? Is it for interior designers and architects? So does it have the AIA approval as well?
It is just IDCEC
Okay.
approved at the moment.
Okay. Awesome. I love it. I love the title of it. And so you teach certain things in here. And one of the things that you just hit on is one of my most favorite things, which is a practice of gratitude. And I want to talk about that for a minute, because anytime that I do individual sessions or group sessions with my clients, regardless, my first question and how we start out every meeting is, what are you grateful for today? And I ask myself that question all the time. And there's so much for people to be grateful for. And, but I have a rule around it. So when we have our gratitude minute, is really what I call it. You can't say generically, my health, my family, or my friends. You have to look deeper to what you're grateful for, because anybody can say, oh, I'm grateful for my health. Well, okay, I'm grateful for my health too. Sorry, I keep hitting my microphone, guys. And, but I want people to really look deeper about what are they really, really grateful for. And it's such a great practice to get into it. So when you're talking about that in your CEU, how do people respond to that?
Well, it's great because a lot of the time, someone in the audience has a gratitude practice already.
Yep.
So I don't even really need to push that practice, because there's already a spokesperson in the audience and
Yep.
they're not planted.
Yep. Well, because
And
what that means is that people are starting to acknowledge the importance of gratitude more. And it actually really does change your mindset.
it actually does change your brain. It builds, new neural pathways that alert us to opportunities for joy and delight and happiness. So it actually does change your brain and your brain chemistry significantly.
Okay. So I didn't know that. There obviously is scientific studies around that. I did not know that. I do it. I didn't realize it changed your brain, which is fascinating, right?
Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. I can't even say it, but anyways, I do it because I've watched how powerful gratitude is in changing the energy in the room and changing the energy of the way the person shows up. So somebody comes into the room and they've had a bad day and it's time for our coaching call or our facilitation call or our strategy call, whatever it is, and they're in a bad mood. That's part of the reason why I do it, because I've watched it shift the energy from negative to positive and change the entire outcome of what the conversation is about. I didn't realize it was connected to changing the pathways in your brain and neuroplasticity. I can't say.
Yes, it overrides the brain. The brain's evolutionarily wired for negative bias.
Ooh.
So the
Okay.
other part of
Okay. I'm not going to let you off the hook on that one. Sorry. The brain is wired for negativity.
for negative bias, it's a survival
Wow.
technique.
Oh,
So
so
if
it's a
you see
survival
a
instinct
stick
kind of
out
thing.
of the corner of your eye when you're walking in the forest, your brain wants you to believe that that's a poisonous snake so that you will avoid it and avoid being killed. So
Okay.
that is why we have this negative bias, but
Wow.
you can override that if you have a habit of um, regular gratitude
Sure.
practice. And I call it a ritual Because the thing that's fascinating about a ritual is a ritual can be 20 seconds. And this gratitude practice can be 20 seconds of your day. I always suggest writing it down, but sometimes the effects ripple out when you actually do your gratitude practice around the dinner table and,
Mhm.
and announce it or broadcast it.
Yep.
But either way, whether you're vocalizing it or whether you're writing it, you're embodying those ideas,
Mhm.
and that is what is helping to change your brain and forging new neural pathways.
Mhm. So I love this. And it just goes to show you how fascinating the human brain actually is, right? It's just fascinating. It's well beyond my skill set to study the brain, but it's fascinating the things that the brain can do. I wrote an article for the Business of Furniture magazine, probably April or May of 2020. And the title of the article was Lead with Gratitude. And that's when I started my gratitude minute. And I got so much positive feedback about that article and how people were starting to implement that practice. And I love that you say 20 seconds, because acknowledging what you're grateful for doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing. It can be just 20 seconds. And I'm currently, you're inspiring me, Megan. I'm currently writing an article called The 20 Seconds of Courage. I'm going to write an article now about 20 seconds of gratitude. So thank you for that inspiration. Stay tuned. It'll come out soon. So, excuse me. So Megan, you got this CEU. You're focusing on architects and designers. You're focused on health and well-being. At the center of that is sleep. And I know you developed something called the sleep system that kind of came out of the issues that you mentioned earlier that you were having relative to burnout. And I'm really curious because this is something I struggle with. Sleep is A good night's sleep can be really, really hard to get. So talk to me a minute, or to our listeners too, about your sleep system and what this is about.
So the sleep system is basically me writing down all the things that I've ever tried to do to create a healthy sleep hygiene, or basically a solid foundation to get a good night's sleep or to get restorative sleep. And I have been, doing these practices for, I don't know, 3, 4 years now, but I never thought to write them down until the pandemic, and people were struggling really with sleep.
Yeah.
So the sleep system is going to be part of the A+D Wellness Toolkit website, and it's going to be a downloadable ebook on the website. And anybody can go there and download it. And
Okay, hang on. When's your website going up? That's great.
it will be up May 17th, so probably around the time that this posts.
Okay, that's awesome. So we will drop the link to the A+D Wellness Toolkit website in the show notes, which will take you to look to the Megan's website, and you can actually find the sleep system ebook that you can download. Now I'm excited about this because it sounds you went on a journey yourself to improve your sleep. You captured what you were doing, and then you created a platform and a program out of it to help people sleep better.
And so basically, it's kind of the process that Aisha Bursell, who's an industrial designer, uses, is deconstruction, reconstruction. So you're deconstructing all of your kind of poor sleep habits or things that don't serve you well to get sleepy at night or to get a good night's sleep, and then reconstructing with habits that give your body sensory clues that it's time to wind down. And some of the sleep habits can be during the day. For instance, movement is really important to getting a good night's sleep. And I don't say exercise because some people are like, oh, they have a little limiting belief around exercise, but it can be movement, it could be laughter, it could be gardening. Really, there are studies showing that movement is almost as effective as sleeping pills
All right,
for.
so hang on. What kind of movement? Just walking around the house or walking outside or just sitting to stand? I mean, give us some descriptors of movement.
Descriptors of movement could be like a spontaneous dance party, could be yoga for 20 minutes, could be walking around outside, could be golfing, gardening, Tai Chi, Qigong, any kind of movement.
Sure. And so what you're saying is make that a habit, make that like a daily ritual to be sure that you're moving throughout the course of the day. And that's going to contribute to you sleeping better.
Yeah.
So basically what you said, deconstruct and then reconstruct. So what you're telling us is to retrain our brains, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
It's more ways to move your habits.
Okay.
So I say 28 days to better quality sleep. But it does take longer to form a habit. But designers and architects tend to be very strongly oriented in the senses. So a lot of the healthy sleep habits that I introduce are sensory cues. And because that tends to orient us and give us more information, it builds this healthy foundation, and you feel the results immediately. For instance, you're drinking tea, right? But that then over time, you enjoy drinking the tea at night before bed, and it becomes a healthy sleep habit that contributes to your body being able to wind down and get a good night's sleep.
Okay. So Megan mentioned I'm drinking tea. I'm not normally a tea drinker, though I have started recently drinking tea, but I actually made a cup of tea in honor of Megan because I knew that she was a tea drinker. So rather than having coffee, I'm having tea with Megan. She's having some tea too. So we're having a little tea time on the Trend Report podcast today, which I love, right? So Megan, give me 3 tips, like 3 things I could do today without the ebook that would help me sleep better. Like 3 really fundamental boom, boom, boom that would help me sleep better.
Well, we already covered the gratitude practice.
Yes. Okay.
And people who have a regular gratitude practice sleep better. And then movement. I think that if you take 5 minutes for a break every hour or 20 minutes once a day to move your body, that will be something that will help you sleep better. And then I would say cutting out.
Go ahead, say it. I'm waiting on you. Say it. Go, do it.
There's some things that are very addictive that need to go away, like caffeine. So I'm trying to think of something that's maybe easier to add. The screens are actually something that is really addictive, and you need to cut out at least an hour before you want to get sleepy enough to go to bed.
All right. So I love that tip right there. So you said gratitude, movement. I do gratitude every day. I'm moving all the time. So those people that are listening that have been on the phone with me can hear me walking around the house, because when I'm on the phone, I just can't seem to sit in my chair. So I walk, and that's movement.
Me
but
too.
Putting the phone or the iPad down an hour before you go to sleep will help to facilitate better sleep.
And the idea is the light coming from the screen. So some people will have their phones go on, what is it called? Night mode. That is good. Another thing that I tell people is to dim half the lights, or dim the lights. If your lights aren't on dimmers, turn off half the lights in the house. And I know that sometimes that can cause dimmer wars between people who are like, I can't see anything anymore. But it's really conducive to letting your body wind down and get sleepy, because it's that light cue.
Mhm. So it's just like our bodies need to wind up in the mornings and get moving in the mornings by, drinking water, journaling, exercising, whatever it is you do to get your day started. We need to wind down in the afternoons or in the evenings as well to facilitate a better sleep. And I know the screen thing is going to be a huge challenge for most people because we are addicted to these little devices, and we always want to look, oh, let me check my email before I go to bed, or let me look at my text messages, or let me check Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. But the light is a stimulus. It's stimulating us. It's stimulating our brain, which is taking away from us going to sleep. So,
and depending on what kind of media you're consuming, this could cause you to become more aroused, because if it's something that's emotional,
yep.
Or upsetting or exciting, either way,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to increase your arousal levels
Yep.
when you're supposed to be winding down. So here's a couple easier things that
Okay.
are a little bit easier to add in. I already said the tea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like an herbal tea, a chamomile tea, if you're not allergic.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that's really nice to add in is just some lavender scent with essential oils. So again, that's an all natural plant-based smell or
Mm-hmm.
scent, and lavender tends to be calming.
Let me ask you about the lavender scent for a second and essential oils. I don't know much about them, but is that something that you would actually put in the tea, or would you like put a drop on your skin somewhere for the smell?
So lavender is a very gentle oil. So
Mm-hmm.
I would not put it in the tea. I would
Okay.
rub it on my skin, or I would put it in like a little diffuser. I don't know if
Okay.
you've seen those.
Yes. I know the little diffusers you can put in your room that kind of put a smell in the room. Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right. Or you could just open the bottle and smell
Oh,
it.
okay. That easy. So
So
actually, I think in our house somewhere we have a lavender essential oil. So I'm going to try that and see if that works. I mean, I love these tips. Gratitude movement, turn off the screen, dim the lights in your house by 50% an hour before, have some herbal tea, some type, no non-caffeine herbal tea, and then use lavender in some way. These are all takeaways that you could do to help get a better night's sleep, because it really, truly is important. Megan, what I appreciate about this conversation is so many episodes that we do on the Trend Report are about helping you grow your business or helping you grow professionally. This was actually really about helping you, the individual, improve the quality of your life by understanding the practices of yoga and the benefits of them, deconstructing and reconstructing, and then tips about getting a better sleep. And I think that this has been an amazing amount of tips and information for our listeners. So I really, really appreciate you today coming on to join us. Any final thoughts for our listeners that you could give them that would help encourage them to focus on their health and well-being a little bit more?
I would just say thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to be here today, Sid. I really appreciate it. And I guess just treat your body and your yourself well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to be a high performer, this will contribute to high performance, to creativity, to problem solving, to being able to roll with whatever life presents,
Mm-hmm.
and really respond in life instead of reacting.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. And you brought up something near and dear to my heart, which is high performance. And physiology is one of the 6 pillars of high performance, in which the physiology is about taking care of you. So I appreciate you highlighting that, Megan. It was great to see you. Thanks for being here. I hope I get to see you in the upcoming months. If not, definitely, I hope to see your smiling face and meet in person at NeoCon in October. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
I can't wait. Thank you, Sid. I
Take
really
care.
take care.